Juno McGruff is an eccentric 16-year-old girl living in Elk River, Minnesota. She becomes pregnant after sleeping with her longtime friend and admirer, Polly Bleecker. After deciding to carry the baby to term, she wants to give the baby up for a closed adoption to a local couple named Mark and Vanessa. But as she's coming to terms with the reality and the gravity of the situation of having a baby, it starts to bring up emotional conflicts, issues, and her own feelings about life and adulthood, as well as the conflicts and problems of not just being a teenager, but an adult. Juno is a coming-of-age story that deals about the conflicts of not being ready, embracing change, and dealing with your own inner emotions and turmoil. And through the perspective of Juno, both from her and her experience with other characters, it raises the question, what is maturity? At the very beginning of the story, Juno is already taking her third pregnancy test. Despite this, and the gravity of what is about to come, she shakes it off as though she can walk away from it, as if it's a thing that she can etch-a-sketch. But being reminded by the local convenience store attendant that it's not something that can be erased. This is the telltale sign of how Juno is as a character. A kid mindset. Her actions not having consequences and just fly by night. This is also reflected when we see her room, tattered with pictures, memories, random mishmash of different things. Even something as random as having a cheeseburger is a fun. It's a parallel to how she is, but the gravity of what is to come is shown when she does discuss these things with her best friend. She gives vague detail about her relationship with Polly, how they've known each other for a long time and one thing led to another. She doesn't go into much detail other than the night itself was very enjoyable, but she's also hesitant to give into her own feelings about the situation, trying to cling into some semblance of personal irresponsibility as if she can just wake up the next day and everything will be fine. But unfortunately, that's not how things work. Juno decides to tell her friend and father of her child, Polly, an awkward, weird teenager, that she's pregnant and he is the father. The gravity of Polly's reaction is heavy. He doesn't really understand what to do. But Juno, being how she is, takes away that responsibility away from Polly and wants things to go just back to normal. Juno tries to go to a free clinic to resolve the issue that is her pregnancy, before it actually sets in. She's confronted by a protester outside who is one of her classmates, who knows her pretty well, and the gravity of the situation hits her as she sits in the lobby room. The awkwardness, the weird feeling, the possibility of what is to come, the unsureness of being a child and the uncertainty of being adult colliding within this moment. Ultimately, she does back out of it out of her own fear, realizing she's not as adult as she would originally seem. When she finally tells her father and stepmother, who she's not normally close to, exactly what happened, the stepmother is far more accepting of the situation, whereas the father is upset because he feels that she's not ready. Not only is she not ready to have a child, she's not ready to be a parent. She's not ready to understand the gravity of what it is to be a parent. The gravity of what it is to be an adult. She's still just a kid, but he's still there to support and care for her. She's already explained to him that she's done the proper steps and that she's going to be giving her child to seemingly a perfect couple that her and her friend found in the penny saver. And so the plan is set in motion for Juno to go to school, come to terms, have the child, and hopefully once everything is said and done, for everything to go back to normal. When Juno meets Vanessa and Mark, they seem like the stereotypical picture frame-esque beautiful house family. Nothing really negative. While Vanessa is extremely hopeful and happy and excited for the possibility of being a mother, Mark seems to just be thriving and seeming to be okay with the idea of it. Juno clocks this right away and asks to use the restroom, where she comes across Mark's room and finds that he not only does commercial jingles, but he used to be in a punk rock band. Similar interests that she has as a young girl, whereas he is an adult with similar interests. This gives Juno a sense of maybe it's gonna be okay. Maybe I can become a cool adult when I'm older. Maybe there are people like Mark, and it's more of just how it's perceived than how they are. As more time passes, Juno becomes heavier with pregnancy and visits Mark several times, and finds that they share not only an interest in punk rock, but also horror films. Mark seeming to be a new friend that Juno can cling onto in this crazy storm. While Juno and her friend come across Vanessa at the mall, Vanessa is weirdly hesitant, and Juno encourages Vanessa to maybe talk to the baby, which kicks Vanessa for the first time, showing that motherhood isn't necessarily based around genetics, it could just be around frequency. As Juno gets further along in her pregnancy, she starts coming to terms with the reality and the gravity of the situation, as well as her feelings about Polly. She doesn't really want to accept the fact that he's in love with her, even though it's clearly obvious, and he's even essentially made that point very clear. She is extremely hesitant to allow herself to give into that, clinging on to childish notions and not allowing herself to give into any sort of adulthood. Possibly because the one time she did, the current situation is the result of said interaction. But those feelings start festering the more she becomes hormonal with her pregnancy, sort of becoming more and more attracted to Mark, despite their age differences and the legality of the situation. Mark almost seems to be closer to Juno than he is to his own wife. And Juno is responsive to those feelings, like a person sees an interest in a young boy. What Juno sees is a reflection of the maturity of Mark. Vanessa sees instead as immaturity. These optics are parallel to one another, to the similarity between Juno and Polly. Polly is trying to be more adult and trying to accept his feelings for Juno, while Juno is being more irresponsible and childish. Mark is trying to come to terms with being a father, but Mark is seemingly hesitant, despite Juno being enthused. As Juno's pregnancy progresses near its final trimester, she confronts Polly for not going to the prom with her, and instead with another girl. But Polly reiterates exactly what Juno asked, to keep them at a distance, to not be close, to not be in a relationship. And Juno seems to be enraged and jealous of the situation that Polly has basically put her in, not allowing herself to come to the realization that she also is at fault in this entire situation, confronting her in a calm, rational, adult way and saying it's unfair for her to take out her frustrations on him when she was the one that broke his heart. She's the one who took the responsibility of having a child away from him. She's the one who's completely cut him out of the entire situation. And yet she feels entitled to tell him how he needs to be. Juno decides to drive over to see Mark, but first puts on makeup and lipstick to make herself look more mature than she actually is, putting herself in a falsehood of maturity that isn't really there. She goes to see Mark, who is alone. The conversation gets deeper and deeper, and Mark and Juno start to slow dance, as if they are a teenage couple, where Mark finally confesses that he's planning to leave Vanessa. This snaps Juno into the reality of the situation, that he isn't mature. He's more immature than she is. He's not looking at the gravity of the situation, of abandoning a mother and child, all because he feels that he is owed in a relationship, that he is not allowed to be free when he is, but he has never once made that clear, only tiptoeing around the needs and wants of his partner. Vanessa arrives home and confronts Mark about the situation when he finally confesses to her that he's not ready to be a father. Vanessa plainly puts it out that he just wants to be a kid, but he's not. He's an adult, and he needs to face the reality that he should have come to terms with years ago. Juno drives away and breaks down in tears by the side of the road, returning back to her home. After a heartfelt discussion with her father, not understanding how a seemingly perfect couple could fall out of love with one another. But she's basing this off of her original perspective, and not off of the reality of the situation. Her dad, giving her heartfelt advice, understands what it means to truly love a person. Juno finally accepts that she loves Polly. She then tells Polly that she loves him, and Polly makes it clear that he also loves her. Shortly after this, Juno goes into labor. Despite Juno opening up to her feelings, she deliberately doesn't tell Polly when she's going to give birth, so he will avoid being there, clinging on to some fragment of her childhood nature, of not wanting to really deal with the gravity of the situation. Earlier in the film, when she stormed off, she did come back and left a note for Vanessa, and so Juno gives birth to a baby boy. Polly rushes to the hospital to find Juno has given birth, comforts Juno as she cries. Vanessa comes to the hospital, where she claims the newborn baby as a single adoptive mother, and the movie ends with Vanessa as a single happy mother. Juno's note in a frame to remind them of the kindness and care of the gift that Juno gave them, simply stating, "Vanessa, if you're in, I'm still in." And the burden that Juno had dealt with of her emotions, her feelings, and finally being happy with Polly playing guitar together in a mature relationship. So, what is maturity? If we look at the story of Juno, it's not just about giving birth, having a child, and what it means to deal with the situation of that. It also deals with maturity, what it means to actually be in a relationship, what it means to have those responsibilities in front of you, taken from you, and chosen for you. Relationships, friendships, family, or otherwise, are all based off of your ability to connect to it on an emotional level. If you're able to do that, and that gravity of what it means to deal with adult situations, especially if you are physically or mentally not prepared for that, can be overwhelming. Whether you're a kid, an adult, parent, or friend, those situations will come forward in their own way. But I like to believe that true maturity is choice. Is to look at a situation for what it is, not what you expect it to be. And much like the words that Juno's father said,
in my opinion, the best thing you can do is find a person who loves you for exactly what you are. Good mood, bad mood, ugly, pretty, handsome, what have you. The right person's still going to think the sun shines out your ass. That's the kind of person that's worth sticking with.
But in the end, these aren't answers, they're hypotheticals.
I used to crowd the plate so the strike zone almost disappeared. Pitchers hate that. That's the way I played, 100% all the time. Baseball was life, and I was good at it, real good.
It's the matter of life and death. Where did your old man get that ball?
What? I don't know. Some lady gave it to him. Why?
What?
Yeah, she even signed her name on it. Some lady named Ruth.